This story opens by showing us a truck driving down a road. At first, everything seems peaceful. It is a sunny day, but suddenly the truck sways from side to side, and we can see that they are carrying a prisoner in the back. The man plays tough and threatens them over and over, but then his courage fades, and he starts begging them not to do this to him, and to let him give them money so they can release him. At that moment, he starts asking them, please, not to take him to see the boy, that he will do whatever they want, but please, don't take him to the boy. His desperation is so great that the man starts banging himself hard against the bars until his forehead starts to bleed. A few seconds later, the scene changes and shows us a boy who seems very sick, sitting in a wheelchair in front of the television. With this intense scene, we move to another moment of the story, where we meet Ellen, our protagonist, who at this time is at the funeral of her mother, who lost the battle against Alzheimer's. Ellen tells us that she gave up a successful career as a designer to come and take care of her mother, but not even that sacrifice could save her from death, and now she has no other choice but to start from scratch. A few days later, Ellen visits the local church, where Father John welcomes her and tells her that he is very happy that she is offering herself as a volunteer. They need all the help they can get, but they do not have the funds to pay her. Ellen did volunteer work in another church and knows exactly what they need: to organize a garage sale where people bring the things they do not need, and they can sell them to get the money and pay for the repairs. Later that same day, she receives a call from Donna, her cousin who lives in Buffalo, and she is very happy that Ellen was able to get a new start, but she needs to ask her a favor. Her brother has been living in her house for some time, and her husband does not agree with that, and they have been arguing, so she asks her if he can spend a few weeks with her until he gets something stable so he can afford his own place. Ellen is very kind to her friend. In fact, she did the same favor for her a few years ago, but Donna tells her to be patient with Wintrock. He was in the army and has some post-traumatic stress, but he is a big help and it would do him good to repair the new house. 2 days later, Wintrock arrives in the small town of Pontiac, and Ellen goes to pick him up. But when she tries to greet him, after not having seen him for 30 years, he takes a step back, as if physical contact made him uncomfortable. But even though his attitude is a little strange, he does thank her for what she is doing for him. He knows he is hard to put up with, but he will do his best to help her. At first glance, you can tell that Wintrock is quite strong, but he limps on his right leg, the result of a war wound. When they get to the house, Ellen shows him his room, which has a photo of them as children. They are distant cousins, but they had good times, and she is glad that he is here at home. That night, for dinner, she cooks him spaghetti and meatballs, since she remembers it was his favorite. And for the moment, everything seems to be going well. But later, Wintrock decides to take a bath, and although there is nothing strange about that, Ellen can hear him making some strange moans from the other side of the door. However, it is not what it seems. The boy has a wound on his leg that still hurts and has not fully healed. Besides that, he likes to submerge himself under the water, to the point where he almost loses consciousness. At dawn, Ellen realizes that Wintrock is not in his room and has removed the photo of them as children. When she goes out, she can see him walking around the house, but when she tries to call him, he disappears. Before anything else can happen, she goes back inside, and a few seconds later, we can see Wintrock running like a madman through the woods. The next day, Ellen goes to church to help out and tells Father John about her cousin and his strange behavior. The priest gives her some advice that proves quite useful. Sometimes, people who have gone through extremely traumatic moments do not need someone to ask them if they are okay, only for someone to be there, waiting outside the bathroom, no matter how many hours they spend inside. Later that same day, Ellen is picking up her mail, and Wintrock is mowing the lawn, when a somewhat strange woman appears and introduces herself as Bonna, her neighbor. The first thing Ellen notices is her strange appearance, and besides that, it is clear that she is a talker, because in the couple of minutes they spent talking, she did not let Ellen say a single word. Bonna tells her that she was trying to attend poetry classes at the university, but she got into a fight with the teacher and they kicked her out, but she is already working on a way to make them pay for it. Although Ellen does everything she can to end the conversation as quickly as possible, Bonna will not let her go and, in fact, hands her the bags she was carrying with food so she can put them in the fridge while they get to know each other. A few minutes later, Bonna sits in the garden and asks Ellen how long ago her mother died and how she died. A question that seems quite strange to her, since she never mentioned anything about that. But something more disturbing happens shortly after, when one of Bonna's fingernails starts to come off, and she rips it off without a second thought, with her finger bleeding and a cigarette in her hand. The scene goes black, and when night falls, we realize that Bonna is still in the house. It turns out that she invited herself to dinner on her own, and now Ellen has had to cook for the three of them. them. But while she is taking the chicken out of the oven, she can see how Bana climbs onto the table and tries to lunge at her. However, when she turns around, there is nothing there. Once dinner is served, Winthrop comes out of his room and does not like Bana's presence at all, especially when she corners him with questions over and over. Fortunately, we do not have to see the rest of the dinner, because in the next scene, Bana is getting on her bicycle. But before she leaves, she tells Ellen to be careful. You can tell her cousin has done horrible things. The strangest part of all this is that while Bana pedals, the little bell keeps ringing, and that is not very normal behavior. But Ellen tries to ignore it and goes back inside to use the bathroom. But when she opens the door, Winthrop is there, completely naked, and with his leg covered in a huge scar that covers the whole thing. The boy immediately lunges at the door and slams it shut, while on the other side, Ellen apologizes and tells him she did not know he was there and promises him it will not happen again. The next morning, Ellen waits for him in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and apologizes again for what happened. It is here that Winthrop finally becomes a little more talkative and confesses that it was an accident in the army kitchen when some guys were acting like fools and spilled a pot of boiling oil on him. After that, their relationship improves, and she has the courage to give him a hug, and Winthrop accepts it, although he still seems somewhat uncomfortable. While they share a tender moment between cousins, Bana appears with a look of fury, which changes immediately to greet them. She has brought some things she does not use, so they can sell them at the church and help someone else. But she also brought a bottle of wine, and hoped they could share it. To Ellen's bad luck, it starts to rain, and now she cannot get rid of Bana without offending her. As they talk, Bana confesses that her father used to do horrible things to her and her friends, things we cannot mention, and she says out loud that she would die right now if she could. She just needs a new body, since this one is very worn out. At that moment, Winthrop comes through the door, and it is obvious that they will not get along, especially when she tries to touch him, and he asks her to back off. But Bana confesses that she wants everything from him, and not in a fun way. To calm the situation, Bana asks Ellen to dance. But while they raise their arms in the air, she can realize that Bana's arms are cut and have many scars. Besides that, she stinks, as if something had died in her armpits. Even though Ellen does everything to make her leave, Bana manages to stay, and in the middle of the night, Ellen can feel how Bana digs her nails into her ribs. So she gets up scared and can see how she is talking in her sleep in a language she does not know. Because of the rain, it is very cold, so Ellen gets up to look for a heater fan. And when she is in the bathroom, she can see that Winthrop is doing one of his nightly walks, but this time in the rain. But since she does not want to disturb his privacy, she decides to go back to the room. However, when she is about to put her hand on the doorknob, she feels that something very bad is about to happen to her, and we can see Bana standing firmly on the other side of the door, as if waiting to attack her. Without thinking twice, she walks over to the couch and lies down there. The next morning, everything seems to be fine. She and Winthrop are having breakfast when Bana shows up annoyed and tells her she will take her heater for a few days, without even letting her say yes or no. Later that same day, Ellen takes Winthrop to the church, but as soon as they arrive, a woman points at him as the man who was on her porch the night before and forced her to take her husband's gun to defend herself. When Ellen leaves the church, she realizes that her cousin is not there, so she goes back home and finds him working in the garden, and she asks him straight out if it is true that he was outside Denise's house last night. He tells her he does not remember, and when she gets closer, she can see that Winthrop has just buried something, and her cousin confesses that it was a cat he met at the church, but maybe it was sick and he could not do anything for it. She reminds him that as a boy, he saved a bird from a dog's mouth, and she can still remember the smile when the bird flew off again after he took care of it for weeks. But as tender as Winthrop's intentions may seem, that night he goes out for another walk, and this time Ellen worries that he will get into trouble. Shortly after, Winthrop passes by Bana's house, and she calls him in. There, he finds her crying, but as soon as she gets the chance, she lunges at him and whispers in his ear that she knows what his uncle did to him. And as Bana's words enter his ear, the boy relives a traumatic moment from his past. For an instant, Winthrop can see himself in a car bathed in blood during an accident in which both adults die. But when he comes out of that vision, he walks away as fast as he can. 3 days have passed in the blink of an eye, and Winthrop's health is falling apart. Besides that, it is so cold in his room that he can see his breath, and Ellen is tired of all this. She will go for the doctor and will also get back the heater that Bana took. But a few minutes later, when Ellen arrives at Bana's house, all the doors are open and there is a horrible smell inside the house. There she can see the bags of food from over a week ago rotting on the table, which means she never touched them, and worst of all, her corpse is in the living room, and it looks like she died in a horrible and violent way. Detective Tom does not suspect Ellen and tells her they will leave the questions for early tomorrow. When she gets home, Ellen tells Winthrop what happened. Bana is dead. It looks like someone beat her brutally, and he has no idea who could do something like that. The next morning, the detectives arrive to ask the questions they promised, and Ellen is very honest with them. Bana was here a couple of times, and one night she stayed because it was raining, but the next morning, she took the heater and never returned it. So that was the reason she went to her house, because she needed it. A minute later, an officer tells the detective that he must see something, and he goes into Winthrop's room. Shortly after, he comes out and asks Ellen to take him early tomorrow to the station so they can question him. It is routine and nothing more. But the next day, while Ellen is waiting, she can see Denise coming out of an office with the detective, and she, even though they are friends, does not smile back at her. What Ellen can see is that they were in a double room, and on the other side of the glass is Winthrop. Slowly, and trying not to draw attention, Ellen slips into the office and can see from the other side how the detective goes in to question her cousin. Tom takes out his file and tells him about the extensive history of fights he had in the army, where he left one guy blind in his right side and almost killed another. Tom is honest. He says that he was also in the army and saw horrendous things, but he needs him to talk if he was ever in Bana's house. When Winthrop refuses, he takes out several photos of the burn wound he suffered and tells him that he has everything on him and that he will not be able to lie to him much longer. Right after, Tom takes out several photos of a kitchen glove. One was found in his room, and the other one was in Bana's kitchen. So he is the main suspect, and for now he is under arrest. That same afternoon, Ellen goes with a lawyer, who tells her that all this is ridiculous. They have neither DNA nor fingerprints, and Winthrop will not spend more than one night in prison. But they must sort out the glove issue, and that is where Ellen tells her that Bana gave her a bunch of things she wanted to donate to the church, and the glove was there, but the other one was not. Her cousin probably took it to use in the garden, and nothing more. She tells her that she already sent a statement to get him released, and Ellen swears that from the moment she met Bana, she knew there was something strange about her, and she asks her to please investigate her past. At the same time that this happens, Winthrop is in his cell, but he knows nothing about them being about to release him, and he is having horrible visions. When the guard opens the small window to hand him his lunch, he sticks his arm through the hole and grabs him so hard that he manages to slam him over and over until blood covers the glass. Winthrop slams him so hard that it does not seem human, and when the guard is finally dead, he uses the blood to paint on the wall. Luckily, all of this is a vision, and he did not really do any of it. He only took the tray of food and set it beside him. Later that same day, they let Ellen talk to him, and her cousin confesses that he is seeing things, very violent things, but they do not seem to be his, but someone else's. It is here that she asks him to be very honest and confess whether he had anything to do with what happened to Bana. Her cousin swears he had nothing to do with it, and she tells him the good news. Soon, they will be able to get him out of there, but at that moment, Winthrop tells her not to do it. He wants to stay locked up, at least until he can figure out what is happening to him. That night, Ellen is trying to find anything about Bana, and although in today's world with social media, it is quite easy to find something about any person, Bana is a complete ghost. When night falls, a truck identical to the one we saw at the start of the movie stops outside Ellen's house for a few seconds and then speeds away. Later, that same early morning, she decides to take a risk and drives to Bana's house to see if she can find something that helps her. The place is completely empty, but the smell still remains. And not only that, there is the sound of rats and other animals everywhere, making every step Ellen takes quite eerie. Despite all this, she keeps going, checking every inch of the place and realizing that Bana did not seem to use any of her things. Besides that, when she walks past the mirror, she can see a ghostly figure that gives her the scare of almost dying. But even so, she keeps going. In a drawer, she manages to find many letters, quite disturbing, where Bana described the things she wanted to do to the people of this town. Each letter had a specific name and a fairly explicit way to kill them. Ellen takes these letters and hands them over to her lawyer, who already has a report on Bana. It turns out that she has changed her identity more than a dozen times in recent years. With all this information, they go straight to the prosecutor, who is new at his job, and convicting a murderer would earn him a good promotion. However, Ellen assures him that he is making a mistake and reveals to him that Wintrock is a decorated hero who received a medal. The burn they gave him was not an accident. It was an act of revenge done by his comrades after Wintrock beat up a corrupt soldier. Wintrock is not a killer. He is a young man who has had a very hard life, starting at age 10 when his parents died in a horrible accident, and he was sent to live with an abusive uncle who beat him every day. But her cousin is not a killer, and they have the proof to show it. Before the prosecutor even opens his mouth, Ellen reveals that she has years of psychiatric evaluations and evidence of all of this. So if he wants to risk his career to convict an innocent man, she will be happy to bury him so he never steps foot in a courtroom again. At the same time that she is giving everything to save her cousin, we can see that Wintrock is in his cell obsessed with working out, but something inside him does not feel like his own, and he can feel it moving inside his body. That night, Ellen is cleaning her cousin's room when on his bed she finds one of Bonna's fingernails, and at that moment, the scene goes straight to the courthouse, where Ellen's effort has paid off and the prosecution postpones the trial pending new evidence. But the judge gives them 2 weeks. If they do not find anything solid against the young man, the charges will be dropped. When night falls, Detective Tom brings Wintrock back home, and Ellen is happy to see him free, but she is also worried about what she found last night, and that feeling intensifies when her cousin asks her if he can sleep with her that night. She tells him she prepared his room. It is clean and has new sheets, so they will talk in the morning after they are both well rested. However, when she enters her room, she can feel Wintrock walking toward her door and standing on the other side. At that moment, she makes sure to lock it, and shortly after she can see him walk away. But the next morning, she finds a note stuck to her door saying that the best thing will be for him to no longer be here, and when she checks, her cousin is gone. 2 days later, she gets a call from her cousin, who tells her that they already found Wintrock. He is at a shelter, and she will send her the address. When she arrives, her cousin was sitting alone, staring into space. When Ellen tries to communicate with him, she realizes that he has stopped talking and now uses a notebook to communicate. He tells her that there is something very bad inside him and that if he opens his mouth, it will escape. Ellen knows she must take him home, but he refuses. Ellen offers to leave him some money so he can eat something and buy what he needs. But at that moment, her cousin starts writing frantically in the notebook, "Where does Grace Beck live?" and repeats it over and over. However, Ellen has no idea who she is. 2 seconds later, Wintrock grabs her arm hard, opens his mouth, and a deep, hoarse voice tells her to find her. After this, Wintrock calms down, and she gives him some money. That night, we can see Wintrock sitting naked in a hotel bathroom, painting his nails with a marker and with his legs crossed, which means his wound no longer hurts him. The strangest thing of all is that he starts screaming Zora over and over, the same words we saw Bonna scream during the night over and over. But that is not all. At home, Ellen has hired a private investigator who has sent her the address of the so-called Grace Beck, and that morning, the same truck we saw before circles around her house again. A few seconds later, a man knocks on the door and calls himself Robert, a government representative who has some money that was assigned to her cousin Wintrock and would like to talk to him. Ellen does not find anything strange about this, so she hands him a card from the shelter where her cousin is. But a few seconds later, the scene changes, and we can see the so-called Grace in an apartment. She comes out of the bathroom when her computer rings, and there she can see an email sent by Ellen, who tells her that her cousin is being falsely accused of murdering Bonna and needs her help. The email only has 3 lines of text, but that is enough for Grace to panic, and her eyes fill with tears. These tears are not from sadness, they are from absolute terror. Back with Ellen, she realizes that her cousin is no longer at the shelter. He left over a week ago, and they have heard nothing from him, so she starts looking for him in the known places where the homeless gather. After searching the whole place, she can see a man limping away from there, but he is wearing a wig and a red dress. Even so, Ellen decides to follow him and discovers that it is her cousin, who is now behaving very differently, and he tells her to go away and not come back until she brings Grace, or he will kill her too. Wintrock tells her to get lost and not come back until she brings Grace. That night, Ellen calls her, and Grace tells her it will sound bad, but she is glad that Bonna is finally dead, since she has been trying to forget all this for a long time. Grace confesses painfully that Bonna was her poetry student, and they ended up getting involved, but it got intense very fast. They abused substances, and there was domination, to the point that she liked watching her almost die. When Grace pulled away, Bonna got furious and swore she would never separate from her because the man in the bathrooms gave her a power. It is here that we can see a horrible man whispering into little Bana's ear and entering her body. The last thing Grace tells her is that Bana is not dead. From what she is telling her, the best she can do is flee and leave her identity in the past. As soon as she hangs up the phone, Ellen can hear a noise coming from the back of the house. It starts to get louder until someone starts banging on the door hard, and then those footsteps move to the roof. Scared, Ellen runs out of the house, and there she can see her cousin running on the roof and jumping at her from a great distance. Winthrop has an axe in his hand and screams over and over for her to tell him where Grace is or he will kill her. But before that happens, someone shoots him with a taser and they manage to subdue him. That person is Robert, the man she saw before who pretended to be a government official. He is accompanied by other guys who take Winthrop by force and load him into the truck. Ellen quickly runs to her car and starts chasing them until the truck turns at an intersection and then stops dead. Robert and his associates let Ellen follow them through the woods until they reach an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere. When she enters the house, Ellen is greeted by James, who turns out to be a priest and a very religious man. At his side is Emily Warren, a surname that surely several will recognize. James asks her to sit down, and so they can tell her everything, starting with the fact that they have followed Bana for a long time and reveal to her that she is not a common person. She is a succubus, or a demon as she will know it. And although she may seem skeptical, they are real. This group has followed the demon that got inside Bana when she was a child, and they were very close to freeing her when the Grace thing happened. From there, they lost track of her, but now they have the chance. Ellen asks why Winthrop, and not her, and they reveal to her that it has to do with mistreatment and abuse. That rewires a person's mind and makes them more susceptible, and because of the life her cousin had, he was the perfect candidate. Over the years, they have saved many people, pulling the demon out of the victims and passing it into what they call a lockbox, or a mind, so strong that the demons cannot control it, and they stay trapped inside it. The thing changes when they show her who their lockbox is, and it turns out to be a boy no older than 10, with dark circles, black and empty eyes. At first, Ellen refuses and threatens to turn them in to the authorities for what they are doing to that boy, but they reveal to her that he is no longer a boy. He is a gift and was born for this. Shortly after, they are shaving the boy's head and preparing him for the ritual, but the seconds they leave him alone with Ellen are enough for him to throw his head back and open his mouth in an almost inhuman way. The next thing that happens is that Ellen can hear the voices of the demons trapped inside his mind, telling her to release them, and that if she lets them do this, her cousin will die. Ellen immediately goes down and reveals to James what happened. He tells her that she cannot believe anything they tell her, but she wants to know how many have died during this ritual, and James confesses that 2 out of 8. But if she is really sure that this is not the work of the devil, she can take her cousin. They will not stop her, but she will have to face the consequences of what he does, and they will be horrible things. It is here that we can see what happened that night between Winthrop and Bana. She did not let him escape and lunged at him, showing him her true face, a horrible and distorted one. Even though he tried, his mouth opened in a horrendous way, and the demon passed from one body to another. When Bana was freed, the demon inside Winthrop took control and killed her in a brutal way. Back at the ritual, the group takes Winthrop and the boy to a basement where no one else must be present, or the demon will jump into that person to escape. A few seconds later, the cameras stop working, and you can hear a horrible voice, like a woman and a demon mixed together. Then, Winthrop's voice comes out, the real one, asking Ellen to help him. So she runs to the basement and finds him there, but he is completely burned from head to toe, and it is a horrible image. Worst of all, he begins to mutate, and we can see that his body and the boy's are merged in a battle. But he lunges at Ellen, and with a single scream, manages to throw her against the wall. Suddenly, the monster disappears in a great explosion of energy, and the door opens. When Ellen comes out of the basement, she can see herself in the window of the house, and upon entering, the place is completely empty and covered in dust. Upstairs, Ellen can see the silhouette of her mother walking with her stroller and telling her how much she loves her. But Ellen knows that is not her mother, and she tells the demon not to try to imitate her and to show some respect. The demon does everything it can to deceive Ellen, but she has a mental strength that he is not prepared for. She knows the good that is inside Winthrop, and then the boy appears, with his hands turned into claws. So Ellen lunges at him and subdues him, squeezing his neck hard, until they finally return to the basement, and there are the boy and her cousin. Ellen is about to free them, since the boy tells her he has it. But Ellen remembers James's words, and asks God for strength to face the Prince of Lies. So she closes her eyes and starts talking directly to God. And he reveals to her that the demon is inside her. At that instant, we can see that her mouth opens in an inhuman way, and the boy tries to reach out his hand to her and asks her to touch it. While Ellen raises her hand, we can see the demon taking control of her, and her hand begins to bleed and tear, losing all of her nails, until finally she has the strength and the faith to touch the boy. Right at that moment, the demon moves toward the vault and the door finally breaks, allowing the Warrens to come in to help them. The next morning, everything has returned to normal, and James asks Ellen a favor. He will give her a recorder so she can tell them everything that happened down there. That will help them save more people. Facing a new dawn, Winthrop thanks his cousin for not abandoning him and takes her hand as a sign of complete trust. In a final scene, Ellen receives a package in the mail with a statuette of St. Michael the Archangel defeating the demon, a gift from her cousin who already got a job and his own house, a sign that he keeps hope for a future.